Cryolipolysis, a word that has really only been incorporated into our lexicon within the past decade. I'm from Southern California, and I feel like over the past 2 or 3 years, every time I go home, I see more and more ads like this popping up, advertising a way to freeze fat away. And despite experiencing some rather aggressively nude billboards, I've actually thoroughly enjoyed learning about the science behind this new, non-invasive procedure that is currently giving liposuction a run for its money. The science, or the theory behind cryolipolysis, was initially stumbled upon in the 1970s when scientists observed that some children who ate popsicles got dimples. They realized that the popsicles were freezing and eliminating small pockets of fat cells in their cheeks. Not much came from these findings, though, until the late 2000s, when doctors at Harvard wondered what potential this observation could hold for weight loss. These men went on to establish the company CoolSculpting, whose patented cryolipolytic technology garnered FDA approval in 2010. So, to go into a little bit more depth, cryolipolysis exploits the premise that lipid-rich adipose tissue is more susceptible to cold injury than the surrounding water-rich tissue, such as is found in your skin and muscle. The precise application of cold temperatures, usually ranging from around -10 to 5 degrees Celsius, impedes blood flow and induces crystallization of the targeted adipose tissue. In a way that is still unknown, this results in apoptosis of the affected adipocytes, which invokes an inflammatory response. The recruited macrophages subsequently digest the damaged, fatty tissue, resulting in its eventual removal from the treatment site within several weeks. Therefore, in the end, the ads are not really lying. You are quite literally freezing fat away. Hearing this, one might think that CoolSculpting has found the solution to obesity, but it is important to stress that at the moment, this is not a viable weight loss technology. To give you a little bit more information about the actual technology on the market, the device itself is a cup-shaped applicator only about yay big. The unwanted tissue is drawn into the cup under a vacuum, and sensors ensure that that tissue is cooled to a selected temperature. Therefore, the device does not cover much surface area. Given this, CoolSculpting is currently used for body contouring. Essentially, the technology has been designed to reduce fat on only very specific parts of the body. And those that are most satisfied with the results tend to be individuals of a normal, healthy weight that have a specific area of insecurity. At the moment, CoolSculpting is FDA approved to treat small areas of the abdomen, the love handles, thighs, upper arms, bra fat, back fat, the butt, and double chin. All of these areas, aside from the chin, are indicated by the image superimposed to the right. However, despite taking on this more cosmetic application, it would be wrong to assume that the results are not clinically significant. In 2015, a team of plastic surgeons from California, New York, Kentucky, and North Carolina performed a meta-analysis of scientific literature that measured human outcomes of cryolipolytic treatments. 19 studies in the end were selected for review. In studies that measured average adipose tissue reduction using calipers, researchers found a 14.7 to 28.5% decline in fat volume after 2 to 6 months. In studies using ultrasound, the average reduction ranged from 10.3% to 25.5% over the same period of time. These results are summarized in the image shown on your right. Additionally, as you may see, 3 studies assessed the efficacy of multiple treatments to the same area as well. All demonstrated that a second successive course of cryolipolysis, administered several weeks after the first treatment, led to further fat reduction. However, it is important to note that although subsequent treatment led to further fat reduction, the extent of improvement was not nearly as dramatic as with the first treatment. There are 2 main hypotheses as to why this might be the case. The first hypothesis is that the fat layer exposed to the second treatment is closer to the muscle layer, which has an extensive vascular supply. Being so close to this vasculature might impede the efficiency of heat extraction or cooling. The second hypothesis is that adipocytes that survived the first treatment simply have a higher tolerance to cold. Though this meta-analysis showed that the treatment appears to be quite successful, especially when performed twice, there are still some questions that need to be answered. First, although every study reviewed showed significant fat reduction in the areas examined, it is still unknown what areas are most responsive to cryolipolysis. Moreover, and perhaps more importantly, there really have not been any effective long-term studies on treatment efficacy. Now, this brings me to my next point. For part of my research, I watched numerous YouTube reviews for cool sculpting. Many cosmetic clinics have been reaching out to social media promoters, which has produced a lot of almost these very interesting case studies. Overall, these promoters have been somewhat satisfied with their results, but I noticed an interesting discourse arise across pretty much every single video. Many people want to undergo this procedure because they've been told that diet and exercise alone only shrink their fat cells. Cryolipolysis, on the other hand, is a way to actually get rid of these fat cells. Though technically correct, this idea made me pause because it almost exactly mirrors the discourse surrounding liposuction. Now, there is a reason why liposuction procedures have decreased by 30% in the past 2 decades. People have not been satisfied with the long-term results, and there is a reason why. In 2012, a study was published by doctors at the University of Colorado that revealed some rather unsavory news. They found that after liposuction of the lower stomach, hips, and thighs, body fat was restored and redistributed to the abdomen within 1 year. It should be noted that all 14 participants and all 18 controls agreed not to make any lifestyle changes while they were enrolled. The attached figure summarizes their results. The dotted lines show the control measurements, while the solid lines show the measurements of those receiving treatment. In row A, you can see that liposuction of the hips and thighs actually resulted in long-lasting fat reduction. However, in rows B and C, you can see how this fat is regained in the abdominal region over time. Looking at row C specifically, it appears as though much of this fat is redistributed into visceral reservoirs. Though not shown in the figure, the researchers found that over the course of the year, the participants' visceral stores increased in volume by an average of 13% from their pre-op baseline. I found this to be quite crazy. Now, liposuction has been performed since the 1970s, but this is the first study that has really examined long-term results. You're probably wondering, why has it taken 50 years? Most likely, it's because performing a study like this is extraordinarily difficult. It takes a lot of money, willing participants, and access to advanced screening technology. This brings me back to our huge hole with cool sculpting. There are really no long-term studies or extensive follow-up. Given with what we've just seen with liposuction, it doesn't look like this is going to change in the near future as well. Moreover, though short-term results appear promising, there is a question as to whether cool sculpting is getting rid of fat or is just redistributing it, like with liposuction. Of course, liposuction is a lot more invasive, but obesity researchers do not believe that trauma is the causal factor for this fat redistribution. Rather, they say that our body defends its fat. Essentially, our body controls the number of its fat cells as carefully as it controls the amount of its fat, and if one fat cell dies, another will usually take its place. This has now been demonstrated with liposuction, and the question remains whether this also applies with cool sculpting. But at the moment, I wonder, why wouldn't it? In the end, though the short-term results are extremely promising, I have a feeling it will be years before we really know cool sculpting's long-term effects. Moreover, this will be the deciding factor as to whether this industry will continue to grow or peter out like its competitor. Thank you.